Hello great human, nice to see you here. So the project looks somewhat like this. We have got a ginormous clock here which displays the time, also the date. You've clicked on this video which indicates that you are here to learn, and I wish you the best of luck in that pursuit. And before coding anything, I first want to show you guys that I already have a clock icon and a leather image. The leather image is for styling purposes and the clock will be our fav icon. And now let's head towards the HTML, and for it I have to click on this fancy icon and make an index.html. Boom, there we have it. And inside the HTML, I'm gonna type an exclamation and then press enter, and boom, there we have it. A simple boiler template set up for us to write our code. And then the title will be set clock. And inside the body, I first have to make a div by the class of clock container, which will contain our clock. Alright, and inside here, I'm gonna make a div by the class of clock outline. So this doesn't has any significant role, it is only for styling purposes. We want an outline to be displayed on our clock, so that's why it is here. And then inside here I'm gonna make a div by the class of clock, which will be our main clock, the circular thing. And inside here there will be the time container and then our date container. So basically these two are our main divs, which will have their value changed by JavaScript, because we're gonna add the dynamic date and time that we will get from our JavaScript inside these. And now at last, for some styling purposes, I have to create a leather band, and I'm gonna class it dot leather band and dot top. No, not top, it is bottom one. And then I'm gonna make one for the top. Really nice. And now I have to add some dummy data for now. The dummy data is added, and the last thing to be done in the HTML will be to add our fav icon. And to do that, right link and then go down to the fourth option and click enter, and I now have to provide the reference of our fav icon, and it will be clock.png. And boom, there we have it. Our fav icon is added and our HTML completed. Now it is time to head towards the CSS. And for that, we know the drill. On the fancy icon we click on, and a style sheet is what we make. And boom, a style sheet is made. And before writing anything on the style sheet, we first have to link it to the index.html, otherwise it won't work. And for that I have to type link and go to the third option, click enter, and it has automatically added our style.css here. Very nice. I've set things up in such a way so that it is easier for you to look up at the influence that our CSS has on our project. And right now we can see that it is looking like a trash. The only thing it has is the dummy data that we have put in, but we're gonna fix that using CSS, and it is pre-written. I'm not gonna sit here and type hundreds of code of CSS because it will take our whole time. And come on, who just sits there and writes CSS and expect other people to watch it? Some people even watch it, and that's what we call weirdos, but not us. So boom, the CSS is what I have pasted right now, and I'm gonna give a brief overview of the CSS. Basically, I've imported a font from Google Fonts, Poppins basically, link in the description. And in the body I have display flex so that all the things are centered. And then I have the clock container, it is already centered everything. And the leather band stuff, I already had showed you guys the image of the leather texture, and it is used at the leather band top and the leather band bottom. So there we have it. We can see that it is a bit more realistic by them, and the overall style is basically a wristwatch on top of paper. Don't ask me why I choose this, because come on man, it will be a damn act to do so, as wristwatch on top of paper is always cool, okay? And nothing crazy going about our CSS, it's just simple thing. Basically, I will link down the source code on the description of our video so that you can check out the CSS and possibly copy and paste it down just like I have, so you won't waste much time writing CSS, because our main focus is JavaScript, and that's what we're heading towards right now. And we all know what to do to make a JavaScript file. You know, the fancy icon, smash this fancy icon, make a script.js file, and then before writing anything, hear me out. We first have to go inside the index.html and then link our script here. And how we're gonna do it? We're gonna write script and then src source basically, and I'm gonna link the JavaScript here. Unless it won't work. Just like the CSS, we have to link the JavaScript too. So the very first step that should be taken in our JavaScript will be to store the elements that have a dynamic functionality in our project in constants. You don't understand what I just said? Let me explain in a bit. We first take a look at our project and identify which elements have dynamic role in our functionality. So we're first going to look at the background. No, it is just static. The wristbands, they're also static. The clock is also static. Its outline is also static. But the display of the time and our date are not static because they change dynamically through JavaScript. So they have a functionality in our project, in our JavaScript. So we have to store the elements that contain these values inside a constant. And doing that is as simple as slapping a kid. All we have to do is write constant and give it appropriate name. So basically first I'm gonna save the date container into this constant. So I'm gonna write date cont and equals to, I'm gonna write document. Why did I write document? Because I have to fetch these elements from our document, and the document refers to the index.html. And in order for me to search anything in the index, I have to use this method, this built-in method by the name of query selector. So the query selector either accepts element, classes, or IDs, and I have classed different divs by different classes. So I'm gonna use classes to get them. And for the date container, I remember that I have passed it this dot date and dash, because it is a class we have to use a dot, okay, and date container. So there we have it. Our date container element has successfully been stored inside a constant, and same will be repeated for time. And there we have it, our very first step completed. Now it's time for the second one, which is creating a function that will handle and set up our time system. And a function is basically a group of code that could be run repeatedly and under a specific event. And to create a function, we have to write the function keyword and then the name of function. So I'm gonna name it initialize, and by the name of it we know that it is used to start the whole clock, and then the brackets for arguments, and we have no arguments to pass here, so we're gonna keep it empty, and then the body of our function inside where I'm gonna write our block of code. But right now, to test things, I have to write alert and then says working. But the thing is that when I start our project, this will never be alerted because we have only defined the function. We also need to call a function in order to run the code within it. And I'm gonna use a simple method which is raw calling it on the bottom of the code, so that the function runs every time the user refreshes the page, because the JavaScript is reading the code from top of here, and then when it comes here it will know that the user wants the initialize function to be called, so the code within it will be run. And right now it is alert, and let's check it out whether it's working or not. So this is our project right now, and if I refresh it, we will know that the function is run and the working is alerted. Very nice. Now I know that inside the initialize function, the code will be run whenever a user visits our website or refreshes the page. And instead of alerting working, what I have to do is that I have to receive the pre-made JavaScript date object, and for that I first have to write constant date, and it will be equal to new. Why I have wrote new, I will explain to you in a bit. And then date class. So basically the pre-written date code is within this class, and in order for me to retrieve the data from a class and convert it into an object, I have to use the new keyword. The new keyword here basically converts the class which has the pre-written code of the date into an object, which is this. and now we will see what does this has inside it, and now we will see what does this object of date has within it. And to see it, I'm gonna write document.write, so document referring to our HTML, and inside our HTML I'm gonna write whatever it has on the date. Very nice. Now let's check it out. Okay, so we can see that it has written the whole date object out here, and we can see there is many data out here. The time is here, the whole date system, even the day is here. But there's also extra information that we don't need, which is the GMT plus something blah blah thing. We don't need it. What we need is this time and these dates. Anything other than this, we won't need it. So we have to filter our date and time. And how we're gonna do it? Let's see. And removing the document.write from here, I have to make a constant by the name of time value, and inside here our filtered time value will be stored. And how we're gonna filter the time from the date? So basically I have to write the date object and run this specific method here, which is to local. We can see that the third option, to local time string. So I'm gonna click on it, and then the parentheses to run this method. What this is going to do is filter out the local time string and insert it inside the time value. And now I will repeat this process from our date value, not to be confused by the date object. It is the date value, the specific date value. And for that I have to write date.to local date string, the very first option out here. Click enter, and then write the parentheses, and what I have to do is console.log these values, so time value and then date value, and we're going to check it out what we get from them. Our time value and our date value here. So we have gotten the accurate time and date filter out, and all that's left for us to do is to insert the time here and insert the date here. And doing that is as simple as drinking water. What I have to do is remove the console.log first, and we have previously attained the elements of time container and date container, so we're going to utilize them. So first I'm going to target our time container and say that the text content inside this time container, whatever text that is written inside this time container, our previous dummy data, should be replaced by the new time value here. Alright, so the previous whatever the trash dummy data I have written is getting replaced by the new time value that we have retrieved from our JavaScript, which is the correct and the dynamic time. And I'm gonna repeat the same for our date container, and boom, there we have it. Now let's check it out, and we can clearly see in our project the time has been updated by the real one that we have got from JavaScript, which is dynamic. And there is one short problem here. I have to refresh in order to get the latest data, which is not a good practice. A clock should supposedly work automatically and give us the latest time by itself. Basically, the initialize function runs once, either when the user visits the page for the first time or when refresh the page. I have to find a way around to run our initialize function after every second so that our clock gets updated and give us the latest time. And doing that is much simpler than you had expected. All we have to do is use a pre-written JavaScript method, which is setInterval. So the setInterval basically is a method that is used when we want a function to be run after a certain period of time. So it takes two arguments. The first one will be the function itself, and in our case it is initialized. So we want initialize to run repeatedly, and I also have to define after how many milliseconds should it run. So basically 1000 milliseconds equals to 1 second. So basically I'm saying to it that you have to run the initialize function after every second so that our time is getting updated after every second. And now I have to remove this initialize, and there we have it. Our whole code for this project is completed. It was pretty simple, right? Only 12 lines of code here, and now we will check the final product. And that is our final product, a fully functional and dynamic clock made using JavaScript. If you guys find this video useful, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. The link to the source code of this project is provided in the description. It was Chris at your service, now signing out.